What's happening, everybody? Thank you for being here at All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. I would love it if you do me a favor. If you've come here anywhere other than YouTube, do me a favor and go below to the link, youtube.com/@accesskevin, and make sure that you subscribe to this channel. You'll find over 300 amazing episodes. And if you so choose, you can also become a member of the channel, which gives you exclusive access to members only content. Great drummer content. Just interviewed Kelly Keegi at his home there in Phoenix. An amazing interview with the inimitable adult film star Ginger Lynn. Lots of great guests on members only content. So become a member. But if nothing else, please do subscribe to the channel, like it, and share it. So this show would not be available to you if it weren't for the amazing people at 5-Star Guitars in Beaverton, Oregon. If you're a guitarist and you're interested in either getting accessories or lessons or having repairs done, go to 5starguitars.com. Everything you see there, the link below allows you to purchase with no sales tax. So you're going to save a ton of dough. They've been supportive of the show, and I would love it if you support them. So thanks, 5-Star Guitars. Now, my next guest features not only an amazing drummer, but today's two amazing drummers. You've seen the episode that I had with Mark Powers, a great friend of mine here in Portland, but he happens to be a great pal of my guest today. So without me even introducing all of these gentlemen, please let me just welcome Mark Powers and Daxx Nielsen. How you doing, gents?
Hey, Kevin. Hello, Mark. Great.
So Daxx, you and I were talking just before we went live about how we first met. Mark Powers has been this drumming force in the Portland community for a long time, and all the other drummers that I know were blown away that Mark and I hadn't met before last year. Well, a couple years now, right? So the fact that when we started chatting, and he mentioned that he was setting up PASIC for this year, and that he has a long history with Daxx Nielsen back in Wisconsin.
Right.
Is that right, Mark? So I knew that there was probably a lot more to the Daxx Nielsen story than has been reported by the media. So,
Right.
And I did do some due diligence. I watched your Rich Redmond podcast, which was super fun, and I've had Rich on the show too. You guys you chopped it up about a lot of drum stuff, but I'm more interested in familial stuff. I mean, you and Mark Powers have this history, so tell me a little bit about how you guys know each other. Mark, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, there's a Wisconsin connection, but we didn't know each other when I lived back in the Midwest, or when Daxx originally lived back in the Midwest at all. But a lot of it just kind of boils down to this one band, Cory Chisel and the Wandering Sons, that was working with Dax's dad, Rick, way back in the day. And I was playing with them when I still lived in Wisconsin, and ended up moving west myself. And then Daxx ended up working with those guys for a little while.
Handed the torch. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
You're pretty used to the torch being handed to you, right, Daxx?
Yeah, right. I've handed it to people a couple times, but haven't handed it to me more often than not. There was like you said, there was a guy named Cory Chisel and Wandering Sons, and there was this EP that they done called "Darken Your Door," and I loved Cory's voice, and I loved his songwriting, but I really loved the drumming, the percussion. Every song was a bit different. Some had drums, but the main song, the track, Mark.
Man,
anyways, Mark it was like the greatest brush I'd ever heard on a quote unquote pop tune, and I didn't know who this drummer was. And I don't know if I ever saw you play live. I think by the time that had come along, I was just loving his drumming on this EPP. So that was our first introduction to each other.
I was grateful to both of you guys actually for posting a mutual friend that you also had. I'd never heard of Dan McMahon before, and the unfortunate passing with Dan about a month ago. You posted some stuff and a nice sort of tribute to him. And so I went back through the archives and listened to his stuff, downloaded a bunch of stuff, and man, what an incredible hooky songwriter. I love his voice, and those songs were tremendous. It's hard, of course, to lose friends at this age. What was your connection with Dan? Had you played with him?
Yeah, the connection again there is that exact same band. He was playing with the Wandering Sons when I had first come on board, and like you said, just an incredible musician and just a sweetheart of a guy. I mean, Dan, just an incredible soul. And then Daxx, again, worked with him not only in that band, but I guess he was playing with your brother Miles as well, and kind of in cahoots on all kinds of things later.
Yeah, he was a big part of all of our lives. Everybody in the music community, whether you're in Rockford or the Midwest or anywhere, really. Great engineer, great songwriter, great singer, great. He was the drummer in the Sons at first before Mark came along.
Okay.
And then he switched over guitar and accordion and piano and run vocals. And he just a great guy. Died at 41 years old of esophageal cancer, which is way too young.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. The pandemic for me really sort of opened my eyes to just how untimely, things could be, and really this podcast was sort of born from that time. Not only a lot of loss, but I mean, as drummers, you guys might relate to this. For me, I noticed that there was this sort of identity crisis that happened during that time, where everything that we did, in terms of our fundamental passion for music, was hindered. Guys like Mark, you were writing books and you're still able to teach quite a bit right online. Daxx, what were you doing during that time to keep yourself occupied and fulfilled?
I mean, luckily I had young children at the time. They still are young, but Cheap Trick was so much that I finally was able to like be home and spend time watching my 3 and 4 year olds, every day. But like everybody, I get a little bored. So I ended up finally getting a drum studio of mine. I lived in the Midwest. I live in Phoenix, so me and Kelly Kiki live here. And then Jillian is from Rockford, Illinois. So this whole thing is all coming back together. It's all one big circle, Rockford and Phoenix.
It is, yeah. A lot of people have actually relocated to Phoenix from LA. I know.
I mean, I think between the property tax there and the politics, I think a lot of people came here. And for me, it was more of my wife's family lives here, but at the same time, Illinois politics and the Illinois tax is like, maybe it's time to see, check it out, and housing prices. We were able to sell our house for double what we paid for it. But to buy a new house, it's double what you would have paid for it 5 years ago. So you're kind of screwed either way. But it's been great out here. I mean, there's just so much music coming through to really discovering a scene here. There's a lot of musicians. Most are in bands in town to go.
Hey, real quick, Daxx, that gear that you toggled earlier for your camera, if you go back down to that one for the audio and maybe hit the echo cancellation, I'm hearing a little bit of echo. Mark, are you hearing Daxx echoed a little bit on his? Okay. I just don't want to miss anything, But
they're both blue. Should I do them to white?
They? Well,
they're both on blue.
Okay, no, that's good. Maybe what I'll do is I'm going to hide you for a second, pull you right back. Don't go anywhere. This is like a magic trick.
Hey.
Let's see how. Well, fingers crossed. Hopefully that.
Hello.
That I think it's good.
I'm in yours, so it shouldn't be. There's no echo.
Sometimes, man, just the technology just is it's a little bit buggy, but we'll hopefully be able to decipher some of this. But I'm curious, Mark. You had talked about maybe getting artists together for PASIC, and was this something that Daxx was going to be a part of this year?
Daxx actually was a part of PASIC last year, which was super fun. I'm the chair of the drum set committee for the Percussive Art Society, so am involved with that whole process. And Daxx was being courted for the event before I took that position by my predecessor, Eric C. Hughes, who's definitely a big fan and has played a ton of Cheap Trick material himself down in Texas with his band.
Right.
And he was working on getting Daxx there for a while. And when I came on board, I was definitely working on getting Daxx there. And the way things work with that, when you're a touring artist, it takes a while sometimes to make everything align, get all the ducks in a row. So last year we were finally able to make that happen and get Daxx on stage for a clinic.
Right on. How do you prep something like that, Daxx, for a clinic at an event where all the drummers are just sitting there, arms crossed, watching you?
Well, luckily, Mark and Eric are dear friends of mine, so they talked me into it because I've never done a drum clinic before. I've always been the drummer in the back of a band, and I never wanted to be. I've got chops, but I'm not chippity choppity guy. I was never like, check me out, kind of. I want to be a band drummer and sit in the back. And they were kind enough to say, no, you're doing this. It'll be fun. You're coming, and people will like it. And it was just great because a lot of my Nashville drummer friends showed up because it was, like 3 or 4 hour drive from Indianapolis. And whether that was good or bad, it could go either way for certain people. But for me, it was like just seeing familiar faces out there. Like, they came and sat and watched my thing, and they all told me it was good, which I think I don't know. I think they're very friendly, but I don't know. It was great. It was my first time, and I learned a lot about what to do next time. But it was the whole weekend was just mind blowing how cool it was. And I've been to NAMM 1,000 times, but basic I'd never. It's just like everybody. It's like I think we all talk about it in our podcast that the drumming community is like different than any other musician, any other instrument. Like, we all support each other and we help each other. We give each other gigs, and there's no competition, and it's like friends hanging out. So it was just a fun vibe. And my 1 hour up on stage was nerve wracking, but it was like they were all calming for me. It was just great.
2 things about that. You mentioned that everybody's supportive. I do see that outside of LA, right? There was a thing about New York and LA. I think probably 80s, 90s, where you would see guys kind of vying for the first call on gigs, and guys like, it was pretty much Aronoff, Vinny, getting like the gigs, back in like the 80s and early 90s, and Josh Freese came along, and Josh was like first call for getting all those things. And it's funny that I've talked to other friends of mine in LA, and they said, we got the complimentary, we got the courtesy call, but it was Josh's gig. And but nobody faults him, right? Because when he got the Foo Fighters thing, it was so appropriate, so right, but there was some competition in areas like that. But it seems like the rest of the world really does want to help everybody get a leg up, and I've seen that with you a lot, Mark. I've seen you just encourage guys when you're out doing tours, or you'll refer people for certain sessions. And I Daxx, you probably know this about Mark, but I've joked with him that I don't know that there's anything he can't do. And I said something to him about it on Instagram, and he said, well, I haven't mastered the unicycle yet. and then he goes off and gets a freaking aneurysm, right? So, and so he hasn't, I figured he was probably practicing the unicycle when that happened, but you look healthy, Mark. You're looking good, man.
Things are going well. It was an occipital stroke, and
right.
In all honesty, I have very little I can complain about, because things are far better than they could have been. Could have been a lot worse, and I'm pretty fit, so recovery is going fast. Able to be back into playing and teaching and things, and heading back to PASIC for the drum convention next week.
That's great.
So it's really nothing that I can. I mean, not an experience I enjoyed by any stretch, but I really can't complain about where things are at.
You, I know that you had a lot of great support from your bride, and I think it's a beautiful thing that you've got family there. Daxx, I've heard you talk about family as well. You mentioned during the pandemic, having time with your kids. Tell me a little bit, because I don't know of another band that tours more than Cheap Trick, honestly. And we didn't even mention this, right? We're 15 minutes into this, and we haven't even mentioned Daxx happens to be the drummer for Cheap Trick, right? So, folks, if you're watching this and had no idea, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, inductees Cheap Trick. This is Daxx is the drummer from the band. Yeah. So you're touring all the time. I know that you guys do at least 100 shows a year, which really kind of translates into like 250, 300 days of travel a year, right? So
you had in days off and travel days. Yeah, it's 100 shows turns into 180.
Right.
So for sure.
So what do you do with family? I mean, do you have the kids come with you, or how often do you get the chance to fly home and see them?
No, I mean, because, if we're on a bus, it's one bus for the whole band. And then, if we're traveling, that would be extra plane tickets and probably rental car. So, and they're in school and my wife works. So, we work a ton, but we also, like I said, if I'm working 180 days a year, it means I'm off 180 days a year. So
that's cool.
Just, good balance. That's the way I grew up too. So I think, my wife and we dated before I was in Jeep Trick. And
okay.
I was with the Wandering Sons with Cory Chisel when I met my wife, in round 2 of that band.
So she knew what she was signing up for. That's always a good,
Kinda, yeah.
Really, but that is it's something that I've talked to a lot of musicians that are at this level, that people don't really give credit to the partners, of a musician that's traveling that much, and especially if you've got a family, there's a lot of compromise, a lot of sacrifice that they give up. So how do you balance things out with family so that you make sure that the mother of your kids isn't overloaded?
Well, there's always a 3-day transition either way. The first 3 days are really hard when I leave, and then the first 3 days are really hard when I come home because, she's used to having me here, and then I leave, and all of a sudden she's picking up all the slack. But then I come home and I try to help, and I'm just getting in the way. So there's always that 3-day transition. But she's great. She's got it all under control, and we have really great kids. We moved out here to Phoenix because her family lives out here. So when I'm on the road, really good support system, and her brother has 2 children about the same age as mine. So they all get along great. And I don't know, but I mean, super women, that are married to us idiots out there. Slugging in the trenches.
We raise a drink to the partners, man. I think they are sort of the unsung heroes in a lot of ways. But I know Amber was really champion for your cause. When you were down and out, and I'm glad you had some help. So, do you have pets, Daxx?
We have one dog. He's about 2 years old. He's a mini golden doodle.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
a mini.
poodle.
Okay.
Yeah, he's probably 35 pounds. He was the runt of the litter, and he somehow was the biggest one of all the siblings. But a real smart dog, and they're really good with kids. So that's and they don't shed, so no allergies.
Oh, well, my folks had just a standard size golden, and
right.
And Mark, I apologize too. I was calling Amber, but Autumn. So I apologize to you. Apologize to your wife. I'm going to blame it on fatigue, man. But yes. So Autumn, thank you for looking out for Mark. Absolutely. When he was slugging it out. But I know that your dog was trying to get into the camera last time, Mark, when we had the interview, right? So
that's right.
I don't know about for you, Daxx, but for me, we've been gone a lot too on the road, and I'm single bachelor in the house, so I have a neighbor that watches my dog, and just dropped off my dog. And the thing is, when we go out, like we're going out for another 4-week run, and I get side eye, and kind of my dog is like pissed that I'm gone for a while too. The separation anxiety, So
I think it's like having children. You have to bring the dog treats home. Bring the dog something home to chew on. Or
it takes my guy about 15 minutes. He'll grab. Normally he's got a trophy that he'll bring to me if I've just gone for a few days.
Right.
But he'll grab the trophy and he'll walk around and give me like the side eye, and he's let me know, dude. You screwed me over, but nobody else in the band has pets out on the road.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I said, we travel mostly commercial airplanes, so it's just too much to bring.
Yeah.
Any family or whatever.
You've I know, like we talked about Rich Redmond podcast that you did. There was some of the questions about favorite songs and that to play. The questions that I love to ask, and so Mark, we talked about Red Rocks last time. I think it's on the bucket list for me. I've been there, never played it, but the questions for me are more about catering. Do you have a favorite place, right, like that has best craft services or best catering when you're out on the road?
Absolutely. There's a place in Guilford, New Hampshire. I don't know what it's called right now, but Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion or, whatever kind of situation. And they got a raw bar backstage, which is, like crab legs, shrimp, lobster, because it's right there in New Hampshire. So it's And the whole backstage, they have a mini putting course back there. They have a heated pool. They have like all kinds of bikes and 3-wheel kind of situations and big screen TVs, showers, the hot tub. If anybody's dumb enough to get in a hot tub on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Man.
But yeah, that's the place that, everybody I know, like I look on Facebook and all my touring friends, like, finally, we've been looking forward to this day.
Guilford, heck with Madison Square Gardens. We need Guilford, New Hampshire. Is there a place left in America that is on your list that you haven't played?
The Gorge. I've never. In George Washington. I mean, I've played. No offense, but I played Red Rocks like 5-6 times now.
Yeah, of course.
Which is to me, that's anybody asks where's your favorite place to play, and that is it. I mean, people go there even if they're just in town visiting. They'll go there no matter who's playing because they want to see a concert there. So it's always packed. People are just happy to be there. They're dancing.
It's hard to have a bad day at Red Rocks.
We actually played there. I forget, it was us and Joan Jett and one other band. And we went on, and it was threatening weather, but we finished up, but Joan Jett came on, and it just came down. I mean, they had to quit. They played like 3 songs, and the show was done. So I felt so bad for them, but we got our show in, skedaddled. So they had a bad day at Red Rocks.
Mark, you and I talked about this a little bit on the show. Like before I joined A Flock of Seagulls, our singer had done it, a bunch before the past, and he said he doesn't like it because there's one way in, one way out. So the only drag is that you've got to wait until the entire venue is completely cleared before buses are leaving. So if you've got another venue that you're getting to the next night, you're pretty much like stuck on the road through the night and waiting 5 hours for the people to split. But just once, I just want it once.
Yeah, I think that's one of those venues that on most musicians' bucket lists, having that photo from behind your back with that view. It's one of the few venues that I think is more gorgeous from the stage than from out in the audience. I mean, that view from up in the amphitheater is great, and at night you see kind of the Denver city lights in the background. But man, something about that shot, and actually it was really awesome because of course you want to check that off the list. I really want to get that photo somehow from behind my back on stage. But one of my favorite parts about that day actually was that I woke up that morning and one of the first texts I had was from Daxx, and Daxx sent me a picture of that shot of his from his first time, and then also included a picture that he had shot or had taken at Red Rocks, kind of doing the Lion King thing with his first son, holding him up over the crowd. And it was like, I think your message said something about like, you get this photo today, not you holding me up over the crowd. But yeah, it's like, super cool.
You're the buff one. You could lift me. I couldn't lift you.
Yeah, he is like, Mark, you've got the climber's hands, man. You've got all the strength right there. Do you do a lot of activity stuff like that, Daxx, when you're out on the road?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a kind of a fitness freak. You wouldn't know it because I love Mexican food, but no, I mean, every day I ride my bike about 45 minutes. It's about 12 miles, and I come home and run a 5K every day, which 3.2 miles. That's awesome. Right.
So, where do you ride? Because you're in the Phoenix area. So I was there a lot last year. I was living in Santa Fe. And so I spent a bunch of time just in that area. Went out to the reservoir, did some paddleboarding and kayaking on the river, and see all the wild horses, But do you ride out towards the mountains there?
No, there's a ton of great bike paths here. I hate riding on the street. I don't people are on their phone texting, and people in general drive crazy in Phoenix. It's like, speed limit's 45. If you're not going 80, people are honking at you and flashing the lights. Like, when I first moved here, I was scared to death. And I'm a pretty good driver, but it's like, pull over. So no, I go to Thunderbird Paseo, it's called. It goes all the way from Paradise Valley all the way down to Scottsdale. It's like a 50 mile an hour, 30 mile trail. So it's just nice. It's just all bikes and people walking and running. There's no traffic of any sort.
Yeah, that's good, man.
It's got hills and everything, so it's a good workout.
I did find I was rollerblading. There was a path that kind of goes parallel to the airport, like Sky Harbor, and it goes along the culvert and the old dry river there, and that was kind of cool. Nice to see snakes and scorpions along that trail.
Yeah. No, I mean the weather here most of the time is perfect. Summer is really hot, so in the summer I'll get up at like 5:30 and I'll hit the trail at 6 a.m. and it's still 95 degrees, but the sun isn't out yet.
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, I woke up this morning, it's 45, and it'll be about 75 this afternoon. So it's really just ideal weather.
You finally went down below 100. Didn't you have like the historical stretch of like,
it was like
90 days?
Like 105 days over 100 in a row.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's too much, man.
It's a dry heave.
Yeah. Like some of the obligatory things, that people, because like I said, I mean, some people may not know the story here, but you're entering your 15th year of Cheap Trick.
Yes. Yeah.
And I loved the story of the offer when you got the phone call and you had another gig lined up. Because we talked about passing the torch a little bit. You want to tell the story a little bit about how, because you had done Cheap Trick before, just subbing, right, for Bunny when he was okay.
So back in 2001, I had a band with my brother Miles, who Mark knows, and we were out on tour opening for Cheap Trick all summer. And about August, one night, Bunny Carlisle comes up to me and says, "Hey, my back is killing me. Can you do the encore tonight?" I said, "Sure." I've never thought about it, but so I did that. And then next night, same thing. And about 5 shows in a row of doing that, he walks up to me one day and says, I'm going home tomorrow for back surgery. You're doing the rest of the summer. It wasn't even like necessarily a question. It was like, you're out here anyways. And you're 21 years old. Just, you can do it. And so I ended up doing it. Yeah. I was 20. I turned 21 while I was playing with those guys.
Nice.
And just did the rest of the summer. It was awesome. So I was doing, 45 minutes with my band, half-hour towel off, and then a 90-minute set with Cheap Trick. So, I mean, that's the best kind of training for any young guy.
Oh, yeah.
2 different bands playing for 2 hours plus a night. And
stylistically, I'm sure the music was a lot different too. So you got to mix it up a bunch, and you'd been hearing those songs since you were out in the womb, right? So you,
right?
It was probably just a natural thing to be able to come in and having seen, and we can get into the handoff question in a second, but having seen both, Bunny and you do the gig, I love that you definitely hold the tradition of those songs. I mean, the feel is all just killer, and people that are used to hearing the records have all the signature stuff. But there is a flair, there's a vibe to what you play that's different than Bunny, and it's really cool that you get your own voice. Was that encouraged when you came in the band?
It wasn't really like most things Cheap Trick. It wasn't really thought out necessarily. It was like, hey, you're available, right? And no, I wasn't, but I made myself available. But one thing I've kind of said over the years is that we're all different shaped. My arms are different length than yours, and my torso is different, and my legs. Yeah. My body mass is different than his, and so no matter what, we're all going to play differently. I don't care how much you've studied to be Mark Powers. I can never play exactly like Mark Powers.
Sure.
And so at first I really, we'll get back to the handoff question, but I had no vision of being in the band. I didn't rehearse ever to be in the band. I could fill in, but I never thought about what it's become. So at first I really just tried to play every part note for note as close as I could. And then over the year, for over 15 years, it becomes more of your own thing. There's certain artists I've heard of that want every fill the same as the album.
Right.
We're playing to a click, and I've heard the Offspring are like that. I'm not saying anything bad, but I've heard the singer Dexter, if you don't play it how it is every single night, he turns around whoa, dude, sorry.
Right.
Thought I forgot about, whatever. I improvised for once, but not knocking. I think that's great. Some bands are perfect, but with Cheap Trick, it's just loosey goosey, and we switch up the set every night. And, coming up with new albums. I'm on my 5th album now, so we're still coming up with new stuff.
Yeah, how does that work? Because I mean, Rick, your dad, was a real prominent songwriter, in the band. Do you get some creative control over what's going into the songs? You help?
Yeah, I mean, he was the prominent songwriter, at the beginning. But I'd say for the last 12 to 15 albums, it's been a collaborative effort between the whole band. Robin writes a lot, Tom writes a lot. And then I've gotten credit on quite a bit of songs I'm on with them.
That's killer,
currently,
man.
yeah.
So all right, so let's go to the handoff question, right? So you went and you subbed for the rest of that summer tour, and then you went back and you'd been playing with a ton of different artists. I mean, I know like touring and writing and recording with some other artists, but tell me about how you ended up actually getting the final call.
So yeah, that was 2001 when I filled in, and then 2010, I was playing for an artist named Cory Chisel and the Wandering Sons. Still, like I said, I played, Mark and I played, it's throughout the years, we kind of come in. He was kind of those guys that had a bunch of different musicians. You know, it was his band, but a lot of different people come in and out. And so anyways, I was with him at the time and getting ready to go. I was 2 days away from going to Germany to start a 3-week, 1-month European tour with Cory. And I was in Rockford, Illinois, having dinner with my girlfriend, now wife, and my parents. And I get a phone call from Cheap Trick's manager, and Rick, my dad, said, "You should probably take that." I was like, "Are you sure?" He goes, "Yeah." So I went outside, and it was Cheap Trick's manager going, "Hey, are you available in 3 days?" I'm like, "No, I'm going to Germany." He goes, "Well, okay, call me back. I need to know right now." It was, I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, "We need you in Austin, Texas in 3 days." I'm like, ugh. So I called a bunch of friends of mine, and every one of them said, even if it's 2 gigs with Cheap Trick, it's still cooler than what you're doing right now. Go do it. I'm glad I said yes, because now it's 15 years. But
and like, how do you explain it? Because Cory's expecting you, right, and like to go to this tour. So what's your conversation like there? Where you?
Well, I mean, like I said, he had a lot of hired guns, if you will. So there was this great drummer, Darren Garvey, that had been playing with him before I kind of came in the mix again. So I just called up Darren and said, "Are you available?" And he said, "Hell yeah." I think he was teaching or something like that, or working at Starbucks at the time, anything to make money. So I heard he had a blast on that tour. He disappeared for about 48 hours at one point and showed up like, yeah, or he's in Amsterdam somewhere, like, well, he showed up for the gig.
Space cakes.
Yeah. So I think he had a really good time, and I think I paid the $250 change fee, change my name to his for the plane ticket, but it was seamless,
That's cool. And
so I mean, for Cory, he'd already played for Cory a bunch. So
yeah. So easy transition. Cory already knew that was like, because that's one thing that, people that are on the outside might not realize how important it is to kind of cover your tracks, right? I mean, you and relationships are really important, and reputation is key, right? Absolutely. So if you were going to walk on that gig and not be able to find somebody that actually had that thing dialed, it makes you look bad, right? Even if you're leveling up, so to speak. And Mark is one of these guys that I feel like, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Mark, but I know that we've talked about reputation, we've talked about the relationships with the other musicians and how key that is, way beyond just your chops, right? I mean, we all know, right? It's there, like, had you just said, "Well, I'm going to go after this Cheap Trick thing," and leave Cory like flailing in the wind. Makes you look like a dick, right? And the reputation about Daxx Nielsen is different than it ends up. So and did you know at that point this is like a forever thing?
I still don't.
Oh, yeah.
No, not at all. I figured, they were already a band for 35 years at that point. I figured, everybody has fights. It's like a marriage it's like a marriage in Utah. It's like multiple people.
Right.
No, I figured they'd figure it out. They'd hash up whatever happened, and, but it just never did. So
you've taken the high road too, man. The band really has. Unless I completely missed it, it didn't become TMZ news, right? It really it stayed as should be, right? I mean, it stays kind of like within the members of the band, and nobody needed to know what happened. And I think I remember hearing you talk about, that it was a band conversation, right? That it wasn't like Rick coming in saying, "Hey, my kid's going to be the drummer in the band," right? There was no nepotism really. I mean, you had been qualified because you'd subbed on the gig before, but how did that go with the band? Do you know how those conversations happened? Were they?
Not really. I mean, because like I said, it was all just not decided, but it all happened without me being there, or not even in the conversation. But Rick has stayed as far out as possible. I call him Rick, I don't call him my dad. It's a totally professional thing, and he's always the last one to chime in with anything. I think because he didn't want to be the one that says, "Well, it was your kid. You wanted him in."
Right.
I truly think it was a case of I knew the songs, they all knew me. I was working. I wasn't just like lounging at my buddy's house waiting for something to happen. I was out working. I think they saw. I did many years in Los Angeles working with other artists, they knew I was up for traveling and being on time and knowing the material, being the hang, like you said. It's 2 hours a day you're on stage, and 22 of them you're there you are with everybody else. So I think it was just a matter of, do they hire Josh Freese? It would be killer for probably 3 weeks, but then he's going to leave again.
Right.
Do they want Dave Grohl to come sit in? Sure, that'd be awesome. But again, he's got other things going on, or Chad Smith, anybody, any name that would fit in the band.
Sure.
It would have been a temporary, great publicity, but 3 weeks, and then we got to find another guy. And, they're a band. It's a Midwestern blue collar, still to this day, band. And they're never one to have to get rehearsals and audition guys. I think it was the right. It makes sense. I mean, I don't think about it much, but any naysayers of somebody's kid joining the band, Deacon Fry from the Eagles, what are they gonna do? Go audition a singer? No, it's Glenn Fry's kid. He knows all the material. We know him since he was born. Name anybody. Same kind of thing with any other son of anybody. It's it just makes the most sense. It's in their blood. It's like you said, in the womb, I was hearing these songs. So
the DNA, I think you guys are both. You guys both have SPDs, right? You're rolling guys that connected to Igor, I'm sure. So I was just talking to Igor Len the other day about he'd gone out and was working like Phil Collins' son, the same kind of thing. I mean, having him come in and take care of those Genesis tunes. It was phenomenal. He's a phenomenal drummer, but he also has the sort of inside experience of having seen what it takes to do those songs right, but
absolutely.
Like complete change of subject, just really quick. Daxx, as I was looking through your Instagram, an incredible picture of you with Jimmy Page, and my favorite thing is to look at the comments from your friends, your close friends. One of your friends talking about your scarf game. You've got it right here. It looks to me like am I right? Is that it looks like the Eddie Van Halen Frankenstein?
Yeah, pretty much. You're right. I don't know. I grab one out of the closet and throw it out. It's one of those the Scarlet. What was it? Not the Scarlet Letter, but remember those horror that book when you were a kid? And the girl, she took off her neck, the handkerchief, and her head fell off.
That's right. Yeah. Well, somebody was talking about your scarf game, it was better than Page's, which is nice. The what was the conversation with Jimmy Page like?
I think that the comment is in there, and it was a brief thing. It was maybe 3 minutes, but he's kind of side saddled up to me, and real sweet guy and taller than you would think. I'm just shy. I'm quite a bit shy of 6 foot, but he's probably 6 feet tall at this age. And I was like, you would never think. You think of these old British guys, especially at his age, 70 something. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Anyways, he comes up and we're talking, and he goes, "So Daxx, you play the drums?" I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Page." He goes, "What kind of drums do you play?" I said, "I play Ludwig's, sir." He goes, "John Bonham played Ludwig's." I was like, "Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that." You don't say.
Thanks for the education.
Yeah. Wow. What a coincidence. But it was that's probably I've been around the industry my entire life, and that was my favorite quote or hang I've ever had with a superstar.
Yeah. At levels. I mean, are there guys that kind of intimidate you, or at least kind of give you a little butterfly?
I the old cliche, we're all human, blah, blah, blah. But no, when I've never been in a room with Paul McCartney, but if I ever got to be, I'd be like, oh my, holy shit.
Right.
But no, for me, it's athletes and, movie stars. It's all the stuff that I can't do and I didn't grow up around. My heroes are golfers,
Yeah.
I met Fred. On my Instagram. I was in a hotel in California or in Canada once, and I was waiting to go for a run, And I saw this guy wheeling a hotel cart in with suitcases and a golf bag. It's like, oh, no, I love golf. And I'm just looking. I was like, that. And it was Fred Couples. I don't know if you're into golf, a legend. And it was he was checking in, and I waited. I could tell he could tell I was waiting to talk to him, but I got super nervous. I was shaking, but then I like walked up and like, hey, I'm Daxx. I play drums for Cheap Trick, and that immediately he's an older guy, so I diffused the like creepy super fan thing pretty quickly. But yeah, I was nervous to talk to him. So.
It's funny the approachability of guys like that, because I remember watching you in Cancun. We did that gig together at the Sands. You seem really approachable. You mentioned being shy, but I love the fact that you don't mind going out and chopping it up and talking to people and taking pictures. And I think did that come a little bit from watching your dad and Cheap Trick early on and seeing that like maybe some of your heroes had been approachable by fans?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think most of the people I've ever met in the industry are super cool. There's a thing that a lot of people say is like, you kind of stop aging or you stop developing when you make it.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of rock stars that they made it when they're 18 and they're still like 70 years old and they're like, kids. They're like total children, for better or worse. But, I think, I grew up in a small town, Rockford, Illinois, 150,000 people now. I think when I grew up, it was probably 112. And I knew about 99,000 of them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, having like a world famous rock band from a small town, we still have to go to the grocery store. I went to school with, everybody else's kids. It was just instilled in us, you're not any different than anybody else. And we didn't want to be. So I think that's really it. And I like people. I like hanging out.
Yeah.
Most people are super cool.
Did you have, this is a question for both of you guys, like, did you have experiences younger, outside Cheap Trick? Take that away, but maybe either because of connections with the band, did you have any experiences with musicians or drummers that really stuck with you, that were inspiring and kind of left an impression on you as a young age?
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are some players that I had met and even studied with some when I was back in Minneapolis at the age of 16 that definitely instilled lessons that I try to, internalize to this day, people that I aspire to be like. And actually, a lot of that for me was along the lines of just professionalism in different scenarios. I would go to a teacher's show with a little band, a little jazz ensemble downtown Minneapolis, and without anybody saying anything about the importance of doing this, I would just sit there, hanging out early as they're kind of setting up and just witness him being the most prepared person on stage. And like knowing some, keys, when they're, trying to figure out what they're, what key they're playing a tune in or something, and having charts and ready it with tempos to count things off. And that was definitely something that I remember looking at, and, maybe it wasn't conscious at the time, but in the back of my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to be that guy. I want to make sure that I'm, super prepared. And then by the same token, also be really diverse. I'd studied with Cory Chisel, who up until just a few years ago had played with the Steve Miller Band, ever since I had met him when I was 16. And, you're obviously a killer rock drummer if you have a gig like that. And so, he had that. But when he was in town in Minneapolis, he'd play with the Mackenzie Jazz Trio in, kind of a little smoky Scotch bar or something. And you'd go watch him play bebop, and you'd swear he sounds like the sort of player that's never heard a backbeat in his life. He's just, swinging and just killing it in that style. And I remember looking at that going, oh, I want to sound like a rock drummer when I'm playing a rock tune. And I want to be able to sound like I'm a jazz drummer when I'm playing jazz. And, something I still aspire to. I mean, I don't think I'll ever fully accomplish that goal, playing all the styles I'd like to authentically. But I think that those sorts of lessons for me shaped everything that I've tried to do since.
Yeah. Like, look, so Daxx, taking that concept, but how about general life lessons? Maybe not so much inspiring with music, or at least on drums, but how about just how you like? Because Mark talked about preparedness being a huge key that he saw, but how about the life lessons that you may have gotten from an early day?
Oh, geez. I mean, I think it's the same thing, kind of Mark was saying, but in more of a life thing is be prepared. Be open to things. Be the guy that can show up and kind of be a chameleon, really, in any situation. I mean, be yourself. You want to sound like you, and you want to be you. But I just think being around people and being able to come into a room and not rub anybody the wrong way, or even I think at the opposite, lift people up and go, wow, that guy was fun to hang out with. Man, he was great to talk to. I want to see him again or whatever. I just think, my dad always said, if you have to tell people you're cool, you're not cool.
Right. Yeah.
That was always a life lesson he gave me. It was just like, don't brag. I don't care if you're got the best gig in the world. Don't walk in and think you're better than people. That kind of thing. Because they always say that the same people you see on the way up are the people you see on the way down.
Right. Yeah.
Remember when that guy was a real jerk? Yeah, I'll never forget him being a jerk. And just in general, we all on social media, we remember the negative comments. Yeah. 99 comments. You're great. And there's the one guy that he's no Buddy Carlos, or that's the one you remember. So
sure. Do you actually read those? I mean, do you read the comments and like go back and watch the YouTube chatter?
No, I don't. No, I don't ever go on like a message board, but on my personal Instagram, of course, I see the people that comment. I've been very fortunate. Early on, we're a lot more negative comments, but anymore, it's just people are, I think they see my general vibe and that I'm out there doing other stuff, and I'm not just, I don't treat it like it's my gig. I play for these guys, and I'm happy to be there. I think that says a lot of like who I am, and just I don't take it like, oh, I'm the drummer in a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band. Like, no, I play for guys that are in a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band, but I still see myself as, I want to play with everybody. I'll take, and like Mark said, I want to go play bebop at the jazz club after a tour. I want to, play with my kids. I'm out overseeding my lawn because I got to put winter grass down.
Right. Yeah.
My wife has a friend coming this week, so she wants me to clean the toilets after this interview. I got to go pick up my kids from school. It's like it's not all rock and roll. And
Hall of Fame induction. Does not preclude you from having to scrub toilets.
Absolutely not.
Mark, I don't know if you and I talked about this before, but there was a pivotal one for me early on. Like I was 16, and I was such a hard rock guy, right? I wanted to be L.A. Sunset Strip, the hairband thing, and if I could get the Van Halen, Motley Crue, whatever gig, that was it. But I was in Montana, just like you, Dax, small town Montana, where we didn't get a lot of bands coming through, so you had to drive many, many hours to go see anything.
Right.
And my dad took me. My dad was a Dixieland jazz player, and he said, "We're going to stretch you a little bit." So he took me to see Chick Corea acoustic band. So I went and saw Chick, John Patitucci, Dave Weckl. Mind blown, man. I mean, everything changed at that point, and I was such a wide-eyed, crazy kid. I ran in the theater. I ran backstage, pushed my way through the one security guy, just asked Dave, "What the hell were you doing, man?" And we talked for a little bit. And he was really cool about saying, you know what? This is the hotel we're staying at. Meet me at the lounge. This isn't really the appropriate place to maybe have a big conversation about drums. Like John and Chick were doing their thing, and I was, a loud kid. My dad comes, talks his way back to come and retrieve me. And so Dave invited me back, and we sat in this lounge for hours talking. And he said, "Do you party?" And I thought he was asking me if I wanted to get loaded, right? And I said, "Nah, man, I don't drink. I don't get high." He said, "Well, good, because if you want to get to my age and you want to do this thing for a living, there's no way you're going to be able to maintain that kind of lifestyle and still be out on the road, if you're doing this kind of stuff in your 40s and 50s and up." And it was so crazy that I, as a 16-year-old, was so impressionable to me, but then wrote me a letter that I actually framed and talked a lot about education with technology, right? So he was just getting into the Yamaha electronics. And so he talked to me a lot about using, electronics and really adopting new technology in order to adapt, in the industry. And I've seen Dave, a couple times at NAMM since, and we've talked about that. And I think outside of just the standard, work on your paradiddles and practice and learn different styles, but the importance about the peripheral things. To me, that was a really important thing that I never forgot. And you, I mean, by the time you ended up playing with Cheap Trick, your dad had already played 10,000 gigs, right? I mean, he's already played in front of half the world's population, so he's got all the wisdom beyond just playing the proper tempos and and that kind of thing. That there's a leg out there for sure. That's a good thing. But I did hear you mention in past podcasts too about the kids are really interested in music as well. So thinking about the torch that was passed. I mean, it wasn't like nepotism that just handed you, the drum chair, with Cheap Trick. But as your kids get older and they see dad gone 180 days out of the year, is it something that you would encourage them to do? Is it something that you would recommend for a life career?
I don't know these days, because I mean, I don't know what the music scene will be by the time 10. My oldest is 8, so in 10 years to be 18, like. Will people still be playing?
Right.
Touring?
Goggles.
Right. I mean, he might be on DJs. Yeah. Like just you stay in your bedroom and you play virtually for people. But
at Red Rocks.
I mean, I was fortunate because I went on tour for 7 years with my older brother. He's 5 years older than me. So I think, I'm 18, he's 23. He's picking up chicks, but they're looking at me like a young kid.
Yeah.
So I stayed away from most. Not the booze, but I never did drugs. I drank light beer for 10, 15 years when I was coming through the Midwest playing gigs. But the scariest part, I think, is if you've never like left home or done that. Yeah. Now you're in a band in a van, and this is the greatest. There's girls everywhere. So I don't know. Music wasn't forced on me. I have 3 siblings. 2 of us are musicians. 2 of them don't play at all. One my older brother and my youngest sister. They're not musicians, so it was there if you wanted it, hey, I taught myself everything except for piano, but
okay.
I took 12 years of piano lessons, but
wow.
Besides that was the only thing my parents ever did to help my music flourish, but
yeah,
everything else was just because I love to do it. I still do. I'm sitting here, got drum him. I'm going to practice after this. I got some gigs going out down Felder from the Eagles.
Oh, right on. So nice.
I've been shedding Eagles tunes for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's just so much fun. It's so different than the swing of Cheap Trick. Now it's like that real kind of stiff Don Henley stuff.
Yeah.
It's so much. And every time you think you should do a fill, don't do it.
Yeah, right.
There's no fill. There is no. It's just maybe like a because he's singing. He's just like a 1, 2. On a dark desert highway.
I was just gonna say, yeah. Are you writing those parts out?
No. I mean, because it's from the womb. I've been listening to the Eagles, and as we all know, and you can hear a song a million times. Oh, I got it, until you get up on stage, like, oh, I don't got it. So I got a board tape from the current drummer Seth Rausch from Nashville. He's killer, and then I mixed that with playing along with the originals. I'm on my bike listening to it all, and in the car listening to the board tape, and just because the endings are all different, and it's one of those gigs I don't want to screw it up.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but going back, I just love playing. So got some time off with Cheap Trick, and instead of just going hanging out with the family, I put it on Instagram and said, "Hey, I'm available for once." We've never had 2 months off.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be out with Heart all year, and we had 3 separate 6 weeks runs, and Ann Wilson, the singer for Heart, got cancer.
Right.
And I believe she's okay. She's fine now.
I've heard that.
But I think she said, I don't want to wait till next year to treat this, because next year it might not be a small deal.
Yeah.
So we lost a lot of work this year. So for once I was actually off. And after about a month home, I'm going, all right, I'm bugging everybody.
Sure. I mean, that's a curse and a blessing, right? You can
go get out of here for a little bit.
So you post on Instagram, hey, I got a couple months off. Who wants me? And
I went to a lot of my friends and said, is this a bad look? And they're like, no, you've never once been like, hey, brother, hook a brother up.
Yeah.
They said, no, I mean, everybody knows you've got a solid gig. It's not done, but
right.
You love to play, and go just put it out. And I did. And Don Felder called me right away.
That's so cool.
Didn't even know he followed me on Instagram.
Nice. Yeah. No. That Mark, what's a dream gig like that? Like if you got a couple months off, you're not going to be teaching, you're not going to be touring. Who's the call that you want to hear to pick you up and take you out on the road?
Oh man, that's a toughie. I mean, there are certainly a number of artists that I would love to work with, and um, it's a difficult one to say because I think one of the things I love about what I do, going back to talking about trying to play with diversity, is I love that it's constantly changing all the time. It like keeps things fresh, makes me keep on top of different styles and things, and um, I really enjoy getting to play the rock shows with Floater and be jumping off my drum set and crazy, and certainly wish that band was playing a ton more. Um, but at the same time, I love turning around and the next day having a kick and snare and a pair of brushes and, like doing something completely different, just backing up like, really quiet singer songwriter. And so, yeah, that would be a toughie. I've thought about that sort of thing before, and almost anything that I come up with, I at the same time think that if that's all I was doing all the time, it would end up being difficult for me to stick with.
Sure.
So yeah, I might have to think on that one a little bit more.
I love, yeah. I mean, like when we chatted on the pod, and we've talked offline too. The diversity of gigs that you have is so widespread. I love that everything's so varied, and even the stuff that you're teaching. You've got Afro-Cuban stuff, and you're studying this multi-ethnic, history with music. That it's great that you're involved in pacing. I think because truly the education behind percussion and drums is something that you have embraced, and I think they did it right to get you in the drum set chair for that. So that's coming up this week, right? You've got that happening in Indiana this week.
Yep, it starts November 13th, so it's the 13th through the 16th, coming up in about a week, and kind of going back to what Daxx was saying before about just kind of the brotherhood and sisterhood of drumming. Everybody's always rooting for each other, and PASIC, over and above a NAMM show or any other music trade show like that, is just all percussionists, but it's not all drum set players. You've got drum set events happening, and marching percussion, and symphonic, and world percussion, just all these things, and you're just rubbing elbows with everybody. So you might bump into your favorite drummer who happens to be there doing a clinic, or isn't doing a clinic but is actually still hanging out over the weekend because they happen to be somewhere near Indianapolis, and it's the place to be. And it's a small area that we're all congregating in for the weekend, so you might run into each other in the hallways of the convention center, and then you end up sitting next to each other at the bar or the restaurant over the evening, or standing next to each other at the late night jam or something. And it's just an amazing way to be able to kind of hang out with players who either you only get to see that time every year, tons of drummer buddies. So it's like, oh, every year we get to hang out in Indianapolis when this comes around, or people that you've never met before. And every year I see cool relationships come out of it. And sometimes that means friendships. Sometimes that means, like more of an endorsement, like relationship with a company, because it's not only just the drummers there, but also all the representatives from all the major drum and stick and cymbal and head companies and things. And so it's absolute honor to be involved. Like little 18, 19-year-old me who used to show up with 10-inch drum heads to get autographs and pictures of all of my drum idols, is always giddy every year at, you get to hang out with.
Oh, who, okay, so this collection of 10-inch drum heads, who's on your wall there that you're most proud of collecting?
Oh man. I mean, player wise, it's just everybody. You mentioned like Aronoff before, so it's the Aronoffs and the Manginis and the Portnoys and Jim Chapin and Freddie Gruber, a couple of the old educators, who would be walking around with a practice pad, jib jabbing with each other about, how Shadow Wilson or some old drummer used to play. But also, that collection has like Armin Zildjian and Vic Firth and, the people who started a lot of these companies or, ran them for long periods of time, who are no longer around. So yeah, it's kind of everybody who is anybody at that period in my life when I was just bouncing around to try to hit as many clinics as I could. I would try to get those autographs. So it's kind of cool because at that point in my life, I was there trying to leave with autographs and photos. And these days, you don't do any of that, but you end up leaving with, great friendships and phone numbers. And that's what it's all about.
The relationships, man. I mean, how about you, Daxx? I mean, you've been around the industry so much. You've been around legends. Anybody that you sort of like. I mean, you talked about Paige, right? You had this conversation with Paige. Any 10-inch drum heads hanging on your wall that you had signed from, or did you collect anything like that in the past?
I have a huge stick collection. I mean, right here I've got Roy Mayorga.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Carter McLean, Glenn Zobel, I guess some Sobelizers.
Nice. Glenn's a dear friend of mine as well.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
You know what? You want to talk about inspiration? I will tell you. So, and the phone calls. 20 years ago, around this month, and talk about intimidation. I got a call from Jennifer Batten. She moved to Portland. She had been touring with Jeff Beck. She fell in love with Portland, and she went down to this club saying, I'm looking for a Bonham type guy. Who do I get? And 2 different people referred her to me. And I get this phone call, and I'm on my way out to go camping. And I'm like, this isn't Jennifer Batten. Like, why would she even be calling me, Red? And she said, no, this is what I was looking for. I can call somebody else. And I'm like, no, I'm in. I was a huge fan of her stuff, of course, with Michael Jackson. I'd seen the stuff she did with Jeff Beck, but I hadn't heard her solo stuff. Okay. And I said, oh, absolutely, I'm in, without even hearing it, right? And I go camping. She FedExed me a package of her CDs. I get home, and I said, oh, shit. What did I get myself into? Who is this dude on her Momentum record? And it was Glenn. And I asked her, I said, who's your drummer? I got to go and find him and shed with this dude. And so I went down to LA, and Glenn's like, dude, you don't need to play this like me, man. Let's just go out and we'll hang at the Roxy and we'll go and just talk. He's become a dear friend. I've got his, like when he transitioned from Mapex to DW, I've got his last Mapex kit, the Alice Cooper kit with the red spider web bass drum claws. And he actually teaches out of my garage here on that kit when he comes through town and make a little extra bucks when he's out with Alice. But
killer.
That guy is one perfect example of somebody who technically he's got all the chops you would ever need, but the hang is so key. He's like the greatest down-to-earth cat you've ever met, right? And he deserves everything he's ever gotten. We had conversations early on before he got that Alice Cooper gig, and it broke my heart when he'd be in LA going to some of those auditions, and Barry Squires would say, hey, here's a cattle call for X artist, and he'd go in there, and before he'd even get in the room, they'd go like, yeah, you're the speed metal guy. We don't need a double bass guy here for this gig. And he's like, just get me in the room, right? And once he got the Alice gig, and they started doing the New Year's Eve things out at Shep Gordon's place, and he's playing with like Sarah McLachlan, and he's playing with Sammy Hagar, and he's playing with a variety of artists where people can see him doing the pop thing. Then it opened up the world's eyes where they can see, okay, he can play it all, and he's a great hang. And so you like to see that happen for guys that are really good humans, right?
That's why I keep his stick right next to my drum set.
Amen, sir. Yeah, the Sobelizer, and a nice nod to Vader drumsticks. Thanks, Chad Brandolini. Are you both Vader guys? No, Mark. Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, big for here. Yeah.
You're an educator. You got to I know that's a big part of Vic Firth's ensemble, right? As an educator, Vic Firth is all about education, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Mount Rushmore drummers then. Daxx Nielsen. I want your Mount Rushmore, 4 guys up on the mountain. Who do you put?
Oh, that's a tough one. Jeez. Oh, Jesus Christ. You got Joe Morello.
Oh, sweet. All right.
I'm going to go Josh Freese. I mean,
oh yeah,
just the fact that he can play with anybody, and I've kind of loved his as a hired gun. I want to be a guy like that can play with Sting and play with Foo Fighters and can play on Michael Bublé's shit, you know.
Yeah.
That's kind of, you know, we can all say Ringo, we can all say Bonham, we can all say Gadd.
Sure.
Those guys, of course, you don't even need to say those guys. But
right.
For me, it's the guys that like are unsung heroes. But
yeah,
I mean, you know, it's them by their flavor. And I don't know. I'll give you those two because there's
I like that.
way too many drums.
Morello, you know, Danny Gottlieb was one of the rare guys that would come through the university that I was at in Montana, and Joe was his teacher, you know, and he brought that pedigree with him. I remember just being blown away by Joe's ride cymbal work. You know, that was the phenomenal thing. But his rudimental work was phenomenal too. But just what he did with the ride cymbal was phenomenal. And so Joe Morello and Mark, you've mentioned it on my show, but you want to give me your Mount Rushmore drummers?
Yeah, I don't remember us talking about this, but there's a good chance I'll be saying the exact same two people. I mean, there's, of course, like Daxx said, there's all the greats. I mean, you know, it's like, how can you not love the Vinnies and the Gadds and the, you know, like all the classic jazz drummers and the Max Roaches and that. But you know, for me, it's often like whoever I just saw on Instagram that inspired me to come in here and shed for a while. You know, it's just, you know, sometimes I'll see somebody play something or teach something. And it's like, okay, off social media, I need to go, you know, throw down in the studio for a while and work that out. But again, going back to just really, really versatile players, my two favorites, I'm going to go with two as well, are guys that a lot of people are not very familiar with. But one is fairly local, who lives down in Salem, Oregon, Jason Carter, who is a drummer who just is extremely versatile. He was touring with the Yamaha like high school jazz band when he was a kid, you know, playing kind of big band and different things, getting coached by Dave Weckl way back then. And, you know, he'll be playing with Frank Black from the Pixies, you know, just throwing down the rock thing, super hardcore, and then suddenly show up at the jazz jam you're playing and just make you feel like you shouldn't be playing the instrument. You know, he'll just like dig in and just be playing jazz in just the most beautiful way. So I've always just loved him, you know, as a human and as a player. And then similarly, going back to the Midwest, Dane Richardson, who taught up until just a couple of years ago at Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin, is just one of the most diverse and creative players I've ever seen. I mean, he was actually the personal contact that made my own studies in Ghana, West Africa, and in like Matanzas, Cuba happen back in the day. But he's one of those guys who is just the most well-rounded percussionist ever. You know, he can blow your mind playing a complete marimba concert, you know, and you'll just go, wow, this guy's such an amazing marimba player. That must be all he does. And then Howard Levy will be touring through and pick him up as his local player, and he'll play the most unbelievable drum set solo, and in the middle of it switch to like a Brazilian berimbau that he'll pick up and be playing in his lap, and, you know, put that back and transition back to get you like, what does this guy not play?
Right.
Sounds familiar. You know, absolutely incredible player. I've, you know, taken some like pandeiro lessons, you know, Brazilian tambourine stuff with him in the past. And yeah, so Jason and Dane, those are my two guys. I love them.
Yeah. You win. That was exactly, those were the names that you gave on the podcast.
Nice. That's awesome.
You passed the test. That was nicely done.
Yeah. Doesn't change. Love those guys.
Daxx, one of the things that I often ask in my guests, and a great culmination as a dad, as a husband, as a bandmate, what is it that you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be remembered for?
Being a good guy, being a good person. You know, I want to help my friends out. I want to, you know, hang out with my friends. I want to hang out with my children, teach them things, and, you know, never be selfish. That's the kind of thing I like with my kids, and even with my friends. Just try to don't think about me first. You know, that'll come later. I just really want to be a good hang. I just want to be fun to be around, I guess, you know.
Well, our mutual friend Steve Brown, when he introduced us, he had said that before we met. He said that was absolutely the kind of person you were, which is it's key. You know, Mark, you and I talked about this too, that there was the Jim Carrey quote that's gone viral a bunch, right? Jim Carrey was talking to these marketing students at, I think, Stanford way back. And he talked about how these guys, they're going to school to study business and marketing and making money. But he said, the effect you have on others is the greatest form of currency there is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I remember Steve saying that about you, Dax, that you exude this positivity and you make people feel good just being around you, which is
thank
phenomenal.
you, Steve.
Yeah.
Tell Steve I love him.
He's the same way, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know a person on the planet that just doesn't love the hell out of Steve Brown, which is great. I think the same thing about Mark. Before I ever met you, Mark, the Jason Fellman was saying this about you, and so I feel honored, to be able to sort of get those contacts with you guys. This, like, you just reminded me one last thing. I was just going to ask you, have you got the new Alex Van Halen book? Either of you guys read this yet? Or
I haven't got it yet. I need to. I mean, all my friends are saying it's just great.
It really is. Yeah. I've just listened to the audiobook. Because I know, Dax, you mentioned that piano was like the one thing that you actually did study, with an educator, and everything else was all self-taught. And he talks about that he studied 5 years with a really an accomplished pianist, and before the educator realized that he wasn't reading music at all, that it was just trying to emulate what the teacher's fingers were doing. But but that was a core fundamental sort of piece in his honing his education in music. But we talk about the Mount Rushmore of drummers. As far as rock drummers go, I think that dude is so underappreciated, like just because he can, all the swing and jazz chops that guy has, and just like it.
And that when he's playing, that snare drum sound, nobody else has that. Like that's
it.
Yeah, like
yeah.
I saw Rick Beato do a video about he recreated the snare sound. It sounded exactly like it. It was like tape,
that's true.
Tape in a triangle, and it was it wasn't even a batter head. I don't think it was. Who knows what it was? Like two different weird heads.
Yeah. No, I remember seeing that too. Yeah, they did. They nailed it without using any kind of modeling. It was just actually completely redoing just the drum, the tuning, and you had to use the superphonic, I think, too, right? Wasn't that what they used? Yeah. That's awesome.
No, he's up there, and unfortunately, quote unquote, his brother was the greatest guitar player of all time. So it's hard to be considered you're the drummer's amazing, but if you see him the guitar player,
yeah,
it's hard not to be overshadowed by Eddie, But I think he liked it as the older brother. I think he dug watching his brother do his thing.
He definitely gives all those props to him in the book, and I'm only a third of the way through the book so far. But in terms of familial things, with your dad being this seminal part of a historic band. I don't know if either one of you guys has seen Wolfgang go out and do the Mammoth gig, but it blew my mind. He's phenomenal. It was one of the greatest shows I've seen in years, and because
that boy can play, and
he can play everything. The dude's playing on those, especially the first record. He played every instrument like Grohl, right? And not just at an acceptable level. He's a phenomenal guitarist. I love his voice. The hooks are all there. The damn guy can write songs like crazy, So props to Wolfgang and keeping that torch going.
Next generation. He's got to be young 30s, right? Mid 30s.
I think so.
I mean, come on, he's got 35 years ahead of him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I was asking you if you'd read the comments, right? And even if you don't engage, but that's one thing about Wolfgang. The last couple of years, people were dogging on him for everything from his weight or the fact that he was capitalizing on his father's legacy. But the dude is such an incredible talent in his own right that it's stupid. But he would get baited into that stuff, and it was unfortunate to see that. Why are you even wasting your energy on people that are out there, the armchair quarterbacks, that are out there dogging. But you
people talk trash about Tiger Woods. There's negative. You're come on, Michael Jordan, he smokes cigars and gambles. Okay, great. He's Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen to everybody, and those people are just jealous, and their opinion might be valid, but who cares? You can't listen to anybody.
It's
Totally.
it's the honestly the toxicity of social media. It gets a curse and a blessing, right? I mean, people think the anonymity of being behind a screen kind of protects them from having to be civil, good people,
Right.
But the fact that that's a key element that you're embodying, I think, is great. So the more positivity that both of you guys are doing and putting that out in the world, I think that's hopefully the goal for this show too, man. The folks that I haven't spent some time getting to know, I'm grateful to know that these are the people that we can share love and kindness, and I'm grateful that we can still be out doing it, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
100%.
So you're out with Don Felder. This is the next run for you. Then you're going to be doing how many shows with him?
Just a handful, because I go back to Cheap Trick. He's got like Seth Roush. He's got Brian Tishy's one of his drummers.
Okay.
He had this great drummer named Stevie D, who now he plays with David Gilmour. And
oh god,
yeah, he's like, Don, I got a gig I got to go do. We're playing Pompeii or something like. But so it's cool. It's really a cool thing to do, because there's no pressure of like, I can't make the gig. You're like, cool, I get it.
Yeah.
Seth had to leave because he's out with one of the giant country female artists. And Don was telling me, he called up. He's like, I'm so sorry. I know I told you I was your guy. And he's like, go. I got other drummers.
Yeah.
I want to play with this guy. And so I'm going to do that. And then Cheap Trick's swamped in December, because with the cancellations of Heart.
Right.
The first things our agents could book within 90 days out was November, December. So
how do people find out where they can go see Daxx Nielsen? Do you keep up at the website on daxxnielsen.com?
I don't. Well, I stopped for a long time because I was only doing Cheap Trick for 14 years, basically. Instagram, I post all my stuff.
Okay.
And then Cheap Trick Daxx, it is. I don't know. I post everything on there.
Okay.
Not even really much on Facebook anymore.
So Cheap Trick Daxx, the Instagram, that'll okay. We'll throw that in the show notes, and then Mark Powers, you got PASIC next week. Who are your featured artists that you're going to have?
Oh man, we have so many artists. We've got Peter Erskine there this year, Quentin Robinson, who's touring the Hamilton Phillips show right now, Near Z, Will Calhoun. I mean, the list goes on. Jake Summers. It's awesome. It's a great lineup. Just every day, tons of clinics, and I get to host a late night jam every year. This year it's on Friday. Daxx sat in with the band last year. Yeah, it's great because it's some of the committee members as well as some of the artists that are there. So yeah, we've got just a great lineup. And PASIC, if people are interested in checking it out, pasic.org. They can check it out online, and it'll be a blast. It's the place to be.
I wish I could be there. It's such a fun weekend. Like, I would go right now if I wasn't working. Like, even if I wasn't not even doing a clinic. I had the best time last year. So
yeah, you killed it last year. It was great.
Yeah, you mentioned being real busy in December, Daxx. Are you guys going to be going to NAMM?
When is that?
January.
Yeah, all right. I'm only a car ride away now here in Phoenix.
That's true. Yeah.
I haven't gotten sick in a few years. It sounds fun.
There you go. Yeah, right on. Well, I really, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, you guys. I wish you guys fantastic success, Mark, at PASIC and Daxx, both the Don Felder gig, which is an awesome, cool, again, Hall of Fame, endeavor, and then back on the road with Cheap Trick. Can't wait to see you out there doing it.
Thanks, man.
Best in health to Ann Wilson. Hopefully the Heart Gals get out there and you guys can finish up those tour shows too.
Yeah. We're going out with them a bit next year. Not doing the whole year because we have other obligations, but
sure.
Yeah, we're doing a Canadian run, just like
awesome. Well, I'll warm it up for you, buddy. Yeah, like I said, the next 30 days we'll be out starting today. We head out today, and we do BC all the way to New Brunswick, and then we've got the next day in Honolulu. So however we make that happen, it's going to be crazy, but a nice way to end the tour,
Yeah.
So have a fantastic Thanksgiving, you guys, and hopefully I get to see you guys this winter.
Let's do it.
Thanks a ton, man.
All right, everybody. If you got here late, folks, go back and check the beginning of this thing. Daxx has crazy, amazing stories. And again, subscribe to the channel, like it, share it, and come back for more. Talk to you guys later.